The final rounds. It was a night like any other, or so nurse Eliza Morland told herself as she clocked in at St. Augustine's Hospital, a facility too old to feel safe and too empty at night to feel real. The overhead lights buzzed faintly, their sterile glow pooling in cold puddles across the linoleum floors. Outside, a storm raged, battering the building's ancient windows with fists of rain. Eliza had only worked nights for a few weeks, assigned to the abandoned East Wing, a section of the hospital being gradually decommissioned after a series of unexplained incidents. Management dismissed it as a cadence. Nurses whispered of hauntings. Eliza didn't believe in ghosts. Not really, but as she picked up her clipboard and started her rounds, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was watching. Her first stop was room 217. A single patient, Mr. Harold Vance, a stroke survivor. He was supposed to be unconscious, but tonight, his eyes were open milk-white and unfocused. He gurgled something as she approached, something that sounded almost like a word. "Eliza," he rasped, his dry lips barely moving. She stiffened. No one had told him her name. "Just rest, Mr. Vance," she whispered, smiling to leave. She thought she saw movement in the corner of her eye, a shadow darting across the hallway. She froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. The corridor was empty, save for the flickering overhead lights. She shook her head and kept walking. At the nurse's station, she found a single rose laid neatly on her desk. A deep red, its petals glistening as if freshly plucked, though no one else was supposed to be on this wing. A note was tucked beneath it, for the kind nurse who tends a dead. Her hands trembled. She scanned the hallway again. Empty. The security cameras were supposedly down for maintenance. Probably a prank, she muttered. But deep inside, she knew it wasn't. Around 2 a.m., the storm knocked out part of the hospital's power. Emergency lights buzzed on, casting a bloody glow across the walls. Eliza's pager vibrated violently against her hip. Room 222, code blue. She sprinted down the hall, her shoes squeaking in the sudden silence. Room 222 had been empty for weeks. She burst through the door and found it occupied. A young woman in a tattered hospital gown sat on the bed, her head bowed, long black hair veiling her face. The heart monitor beside her beeped a steady rhythm. "Mom, are you all right?" Eliza stepped closer. The woman lifted her head. Her face was a ruin. Hollow eye sockets weeping dark, viscous tears, a mouth stretched too wide, stitched crudely at the edges. Eliza screamed. The figure lunged. Eliza stumbled backward, slamming the door shut behind her. Her breath came in sharp, shallow gasps. She pressed the emergency call button on her pager. No response. She tried the hospital's landline, dead. "Get it together," she hissed to herself. It's stress, lack of sleep. She decided she needed to leave the East Wing immediately. But as she turned down the main hall, she realized the building's layout had changed. Where there should have been a short corridor leading to the central elevators, there was now a dark, yawning hallway she didn't recognize. The walls here were older, fang like dead skin. It smelled like damp earth and something far worse, something rotting. Still, she had no choice but to move forward. As she walked, the air grew colder. Her breath fogged before her. She passed doors labeled with patient names she didn't recognize. Eleanor Cross, Jacob Price, Sylvia Hammond. Some doors swung open as she passed, revealing glimpses of skeletal figures writhing in hospital beds, their mouths gaping in endless, silent screams. The walls began to bleed. At first, she thought it was a trick of the light, but crimson rivulets trickled from the ceiling tiles, running down the walls and pooling at her feet. The scent of copper was overwhelming. Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind her, rapid, shuffling. She broke into a run. Up ahead, a door marked More swung open on its own. No way. But when she turned to find another route, she saw them. Dozens of figures stumbling out of the darkness behind her. Some were missing limbs, others with twisted, broken bodies, all reaching for her. Eliza screamed and dove for the morgue door. It slammed shut behind her. Inside, the temperature was Frost-rimmed metal drawers lined the walls. A single table dominated the center of the room, and on it lay a covered corpse. The sheet twitched. Eliza backed away slowly, searching for another exit. She spotted a service elevator across the room and sprinted toward it. She almost made it. A hand, cold and bloated, shot out from beneath the sheet and grabbed her ankle. She crashed to the floor, kicking and thrashing. Another hand joined the first, then another, and another. They dragged her back toward the table. Desperate, Eliza clawed at the tiled floor, her fingernails splitting and bleeding. Somehow, she wrenched free and staggered to the elevator. She punched the button over and over, sobbing. The doors creaked open at last, revealing a yawning black void. She hesitated. Something about the darkness inside didn't feel right. But the morgue doors shuddered as the dead pounded against them, their moans filling the room. With no other choice, she plunged into the elevator. The doors slid shut. The elevator descended, longer than it should have. The ride stretched into impossibility, the walls groaning and the floor vibrating under her feet. An oppressive presence filled the tiny space, pressing down on her, whispering unintelligible things in her ears. The numbers above the door ticked downward. B1, B2, B3, B13. The elevator stopped. The doors opened into darkness. Eliza stepped out into a corridor she instantly regretted entering. The walls were lined with mirrors, but the reflections didn't match her movements. Some versions of herself stared back hollow-eyed, grinning. Others wept blood. One pressed its hands against the glass, mouthing "Help me." She stumbled forward. At the far end of the corridor, a figure waited. A nurse, dressed in an old-fashioned uniform stained with rust and filth. The nurse's face was a blur of rotted flesh. "You don't belong here," the figure rasped. "I just want to leave," Eliza cried. The figure shook its head. "You're already part of us." Behind her, the mirrors cracked, and the reflections began to crawl through the broken glass, reaching for her. Eliza ran. At the end of the hallway, a single door glowed with weak, golden light. She hurtled toward it, feeling cold fingers brushing her arms and rubbing. She threw herself through the door and found herself back at the nurse's station. The lights were on. The storm had passed. Everything was normal. Breathing heavily, she checked her watch. 6 a.m. shift change. Had she imagined it all? She gathered her things, eager to flee. As she left the station, she glanced back one last time and froze. On her desk, a single rose lay. Fresh, crimson, waiting. The end.